Malicious compliance can be the best. I'm your host, Height. Let's see who's been blessed. Our first one is from Common Employee. So this recently happened in my call center type job. My brand new supervisor, promoted for all the wrong reasons, wasn't exactly qualified. I could write a whole post on that, but the gist is, she only got promoted because she was friends with the boss and is always giving him advice on the women he dates. Anyway, we had a Teams chat where we kept each other updated and asked for help with things. Normal procedure was simple. If you stepped away, we would typically just type "be right back," so everyone knew you weren't available for calls. Did this for years with no issues. Well, new supervisor decides that's not good enough. She needs to assert control and dominance. She announced to us in one-on-one combos that we all had to start giving specific reasons for why we were stepping away. I told her I wasn't really comfortable announcing to the entire team every time I had to use the bathroom. She basically shrugged and said, "It's the rule. We need transparency so I know what everyone's doing." Okay, we've had no issues for years, but whatever she says goes, I guess. The very next time nature called, instead of a boring "be right back," I typed "be right back, going to poop in the bathroom." Immediately she PM'd me in Teams, saying that was not professional. I reminded her she told us to be specific and I was just following directions. After that, others started joining in. Some favorites were, "Be right back, gonna stand in front of the urinal and do an impression of a water fountain." "Be right back, going to blow my nose to try to dislodge this giant booger." Within a week, the supervisor started telling us we didn't need to be so specific when stepping away from our desks. Like, yeah, we know. A prime example of the kind of manager I've spoken so many times about that just doesn't belong in the position they're in, but got it handed to them anyway. Not to mention the coming in needing to make a change and having to backtrack because the change was crap. Absolutely love that the entire office joined in on this malicious compliance. This next one is by Viking ZX. This happened a few years ago in my last apartment. My roommate and I were living in a basement place with upstairs neighbors, and the owner decided he wanted to sell. The upstairs neighbors ended up buying it and became our new landlords, and they were awful at it. I could fill a whole post with the amount of stuff they tried to get away with, but we're here to talk about one particular instance. But suffice to say, they had no idea that landlords had responsibilities, and simply saw us tenants as a source of income that should be ever growing, hence our rent suddenly spiking, and why we left. But there was one time they maliciously complianced themselves. See, they had a habit of trying to push stuff on us that was blatantly illegal. Their first contract, for example, said among other things that they had the right to enter the apartment at any time they wanted and could go through our stuff if they wished because we were living on their property. I pointed out that this was highly illegal and they grew very upset, saying, "Well, we'll see about this." This clause later suddenly became the real one before we signed. One day, however, our lone fire alarm stopped working. As dutiful tenants, we reached out and said, "Hey, the fire alarm stopped working." Their response was a predictable sort of, "So what?" "We need to have a working fire alarm," we replied, "and it's the landlord's duty to provide working fire alarms." "No, it's not. You want one? You get it." "The law says otherwise." And here's where they maliciously complianced themselves. Possibly because they were getting tired of being corrected, they got snooty with this one. We got a very sarcastic response. "Oh, does it? Does it? Well, we'll just see what the fire marshal has to say about that." Me and my roommate, upon receiving this message, burst out laughing. But they were serious. They thought they were going to contact the fire marshal, he was going to side with them, and then they could come down on us hard. I don't know what their expressions were when we said, "Okay, yeah, do that." However, the next morning, there's frantic knocking at our door. There's the landlord and his family, looking very concerned, with a bag of brand new fire alarms, one for each room, and if I recall, even 2 spares. He begs to be let in outside of the 24-hour notice, and says it's an emergency. He has to put these alarms up right now. Trying not to laugh, we let them in, and they hurriedly put one in every single room, apologizing profusely for the delay, and telling us, "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." I don't know how that meeting with the fire marshal went, or if they got him or someone else at their office, but their attitude painted a pretty clear picture of the ultimate result. They complied maliciously, thinking they'd call our bluff. Whoops. How dumb do you have to be to think you could go talk to the fire marshal and literally ask, is it safe and okay within any kind of regulation to have a building that does not have a fire alarm, or a working one at that? Absolutely love that that backfired 100% in their face. And our final one is from Jules083. Story takes place in the 60s. Grandfather-in-law was a World War II vet, was a POW in Italy, got out of the POW camp and rejoined his unit, then continued the war. So a verified badass. Worked the railroad at a steel mill, just locally moving cars and setting up the train, moving stuff from one plant to the other, that kind of thing. The mill was on either side of a river, with a rail bridge connecting them, and the main rails ran right through both sections of the mill. So when he came through with a lot of cars, it would temporarily close the roads in the mill. He would get a little overtime quite often, just by the nature of the job, couple hours or so per week. When it's shift change time, but you're driving a train, you need to finish up before you can run the engine back to let your relief take over. So of course, the mill decided to make a no overtime, no exceptions rule. It took him a couple weeks to get it timed just right. At 3 p.m., his shift was over. He parked the engine right by the time clock, clocked out, and went home. He said there was almost 2 miles of cars hooked up to the engine, went through the section of the mill he was at, across the river, and into the other section of the mill. All the track was owned by the mill, so it didn't affect the actual railroad, just the mill. The mill bosses wanted to punish him. I forgot the details, but the union shut that right down. Nothing happened, and the rules changed the next day. There's just too many people in charge. I know this happened back in the 60s, but it just goes to show that it's been ongoing, that make decisions without having any foresight whatsoever as to what the potential consequences of those decisions might be. Fantastic malicious compliance. Alright, that's enough maliciousness for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Malicious Compliance. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.